The smell of cadmium red oil paint burned my nostrils as my sister's hand released the tube. It rolled across the vanity, leaving a crimson trail on the white marble, a grotesque mirror of the thick glistening slash now defiling my wedding dress. My throat constricted, vision tunneling until all I could see was the still wet paint violating the intricate lace I'd spent months designing. It was too plain, Hannah whispered, her voice a theatrical murmur that sliced through the sudden silence. All that white. It needed a little life, a little tragedy. I couldn't breathe. The dress hung from the door frame like a murdered bride, the custom pattern of ferns and jasmine blossoms I'd designed now bisected by a visceral wound of red. My fingers trembled as they reached toward the fabric but stopped short, afraid to touch the desecration. Behind me, the bathroom door opened. My mother Patricia appeared in the mirror's reflection, taking in the scene with one sweeping glance. I saw something flicker in her eyes, recognition, perhaps even horror, before it vanished, replaced by the familiar steely resolve I'd known all my life. "Well, Natalie," she said, her voice sharp with accusation rather than comfort. "You shouldn't have provoked her. My name is Natalie, I'm 31 and a landscape designer. This is the story of how I turned a ruined wedding into the spotlight my sister always craved, and then took it for myself." The words struck like physical blows. "Provoked her? Mom, what?" "This is what happens when you push her," my mother continued, her voice rising as she positioned herself beside Hannah. "You and this perfect quiet little life you've built. You had to have this perfect dress, something no one else could have. You couldn't just let her have her wedding month without trying to steal her shine." The betrayal crystallized in that moment. It wasn't just my sister's jealousy, I was now being cast as the villain, the architect of my own destruction. The dress could perhaps be salvaged, but my mother's words had inflicted a wound that would never heal. My maid of honor, Tara, had been standing in the doorway. While I stood frozen, she stepped forward with calm, decisive action. Without a word, she raised her phone and took a clear photograph of the dress, perfect evidence. Then she gently touched my arm, her fingers warm against my ice-cold skin. "We are leaving," she said, her voice low but firm. She guided my trembling body away from the stench of oil paint and betrayal into the sanctuary of her car. Tara led me through the house and out to her car waiting in the driveway, her arm steady around my shoulders as I struggled to process what had just happened. The 20-minute drive to the lakeside hotel passed in silence, my mind still reeling as Tara checked us into a suite on the top floor. An hour later, wrapped in a hotel blanket, the first tremors of shock subsided. Tara's phone buzzed in her hand. She showed me the screen. She had posted the photograph with a simple statement. "Due to a deliberate and malicious act of vandalism by a close family member, the wedding of Natalie and Keith is cancelled. We ask that you respect their privacy at this time." Tara had posted the photograph to her Instagram account, where she had a modest but engaged following of fellow event planners. Julian, who occasionally featured wedding design in his content, saw it when one of his producers flagged it as it began gaining traction. Keith arrived at the hotel within the hour, his initial shock at the ruined dress giving way to steady resolve as we discussed Julian's proposal. "Whatever you want to do, I'm with you," he said, squeezing my hand. "This is about us, not them." Tara hadn't done it for revenge. She'd done it to stop the bleeding, to build a wall against the inevitable questions. But in doing so, she had ignited something neither of us anticipated. The first notification arrived minutes later. The name on the screen made my breath catch, Julian Vance. Even through my despondent haze, I recognized him. Julian wasn't just an influencer, he was a cultural phenomenon, a digital-age tastemaker with millions of followers who tuned in for his commentary on design, art, and craftsmanship. His message was direct: "I just saw what happened to your dress. That lace pattern was extraordinary craftsmanship. Destroying it with something as crude as oil paint isn't just an attack on a wedding, it's an offense against artistry itself. This cannot be the final word on your story." I stared at the words, initial reaction a mixture of disbelief and suspicion. But more messages followed from him, from his producers. He wasn't offering condolences. He was proposing action. When we spoke by phone, his voice was exactly as it sounded in his videos, resonant, intelligent, utterly convincing. "Natalie," he began, "your wedding wasn't cancelled. It was postponed by an act of jealousy. There's a difference." I remained silent, unsure where this was heading. What was attacked wasn't just your dress, but the very idea of creating something beautiful and personal. My audience, they don't just consume content. They believe in the things I talk about, artistry over artifice. And right now, they're furious on your behalf. He was right. Tara showed me the post. It had transformed from a simple announcement into a viral inferno. Julian had shared it, adding a single sentence. This is what happens when talentless narcissism confronts genuine creativity. The comment section was a tidal wave of support and outrage. My personal tragedy had become a public parable. Julian's proposal was bold. We are going to give you a new wedding, not as a gift but as a platform. We'll transform this into a live event, proving that creation will always triumph over destruction. I hesitated. The idea of turning my intimate ceremony into a public event felt wrong. But then I thought about Hannah, about my mother, about the years I'd spent being diminished by those who should have lifted me up. For once, I wouldn't yield. For once, I would take up space. I would be seen. No, I said, surprising Julian into silence. You're not going to give me a new wedding. We are going to create it together, and it's going to be more than a response to destruction. It's going to be a celebration of everything they tried to destroy: creativity, authenticity, and joy. I heard the smile in Julian's voice. Even better. What do you need? I didn't hesitate. I need the Botanical Conservatory downtown. I've designed gardens around this city for years, created beauty for everyone else. Now I want to stand in the middle of that beauty for myself. Consider it done. What about a new dress? Julian's production company covered the venue and filming costs as an investment in exclusive content, while several designers and vendors eagerly offered their services in exchange for the unprecedented exposure. I thought of the desecrated lace, the pattern I'd spent months designing. I don't want to erase what happened. I want to transform it. I want the new dress to acknowledge the wound but make it part of something stronger, more beautiful. Within hours, a celebrated fashion designer, a woman known for her architectural sculptural gowns, reached out. She called my situation an emergency artistic intervention. As Julian documented the process for his followers, something unexpected happened. People started asking if they could attend, not just watch the live stream, but be there, bear witness, participate in the restoration of something that had been broken. What began as a handful of requests soon became hundreds. The wedding was no longer a private affair for 75 guests. It was becoming a public statement about creativity, resilience, and the power of community to heal what malice had destroyed. In a quiet moment amid the whirlwind, I realized the profound irony. Hannah had spent her life manufacturing attention, using our family as stagehands. With one act of destruction, she had inadvertently given me a spotlight so vast it illuminated the entire country. She wanted to steal my shine. She had instead given me the sun. 6 days after the incident, I stood in the designer's studio for the final fitting. The new wedding was set for exactly 1 week after the original date. The dress fitting was emotional, the new gown a masterpiece of structured silk and shimmering thread, with a slash of deep crimson now integrated as a deliberate design element, transformed from wound to statement. It's perfect, I whispered, running my fingers along the deliberate asymmetry. It's honest. The designer nodded. Beauty that acknowledges pain always is. On the morning of our new wedding day, Keith and I arrived separately at the downtown Botanical Conservatory, the glass dome gleaming in the morning sun as production crews made final adjustments. The day of the new wedding felt like stepping into an alternate reality. The Botanical Conservatory, a place I had always admired professionally, had been transformed. Julian's production team had set up cameras and lighting with an elegance that amplified the natural beauty rather than overwhelming it. But it was the guests who took my breath away. Hundreds of people from all walks of life filled the soaring glass atrium. They weren't spectators, they were participants, a silent chorus of support. From a secluded balcony, Tara and I watched them file in. Hannah wanted an audience, she observed. I guess she got one for you instead. There was no bitterness in her voice, only a sense of profound cosmic justice. We had sent formal invitations to my family. Not out of hope for reconciliation, but to make a statement: your presence is not required for my happiness. 10 minutes before the ceremony, my phone vibrated with a text. It was from Hannah. Hannah had texted my emergency backup phone. The number Keith had insisted I keep after my main phone was flooded with messages from supporters and media. Is this whole circus really necessary? You've made your point. Stop being dramatic. I showed Tara, who snorted. Dramatic? That's rich coming from her. I considered ignoring it, but something had changed in me. I typed, I'm not being dramatic. I'm being visible. There's a difference. I turned my phone off after that. This day wasn't about them anymore. The walk down the aisle was surreal. Every eye was on me, not with the critical judgment I'd grown up with, but with open, encouraging warmth. I saw faces of all ages, all backgrounds, united by a story of destruction and rebuilding. I saw Keith waiting for me, his expression a mixture of awe and unwavering love, the one constant in a week of dizzying change. The ceremony was live-streamed, with millions watching as we said our vows. We didn't mention the events directly, but the theme of resilience, of building beauty from broken foundations, wove through every word. My vows to Keith were about the quiet strength that underpins true partnership, the kind of love that doesn't need a spotlight because it generates its own light. It was my final response to my family's obsession with external validation. The broadcast became the #1 trending topic nationwide. News channels picked it up. My personal disaster had become a spectacle of triumph. I, Natalie, the quiet landscape designer, the forgotten sister, had for one day captured the attention of an entire nation. We never heard from my family directly. Their defeat wasn't a dramatic confrontation but a quiet, crushing irrelevance. I imagined them watching my wedding on a screen, just like millions of other strangers. They had made themselves spectators to my life, and now that was all they would ever be. Ironically, Hannah's own wedding was quietly cancelled 2 weeks after our viral ceremony, her fiancé reportedly disturbed by the revelation of her character. She would later try to leverage the notoriety into her own social media presence, but without the authenticity people craved, it quickly faded to obscurity. I sent a formal letter through my attorney a month after our honeymoon, severing all legal and financial ties with my mother and sister. The documents, restraining orders included, made it clear the destruction of my dress had been the final act in our family story. Their power over me had once been absolute because my world was small enough for them to dominate. In their attempt to destroy that small world, they had propelled me into one so large their influence couldn't even cast a shadow. As the evening closed and Keith and I stood on a terrace overlooking the illuminated gardens, I thought about the ruined dress. It was a symbol of a past I no longer mourned. My sister's act of malice, intended to be the final chapter of my story, had instead become merely a footnote in a much grander, more beautiful narrative I was only just beginning to write.